Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stick Up Light and Fire. Today we have,
Scott Fenster from Monster Manor.
yeah, and so I'll just get to the questions a little bit, and then Eric, you go.
Alrighty.
So just some favorite movies, that you have. So
I'm a big classic monster fan, so I always kind of go back to my first love. It was Frankenstein, 1931. I
yeah,
saw that when I was first 4 years old on something called an 8 millimeter film. It was our version of home video. So my brother thought he was going to terrorize me by putting this on, and I wound up loving it. And it started my lifelong affair
yeah,
with Jack Pierce and Boris Karloff and all the other boogeymen.
that's pretty cool. Well, those movies, the Universal Monster movies, they're one of those movies that they are horror movies, definitely, but they're kids can watch them. Like I would say that I would rather have a kid watch the Universal movies versus like you have to wait for older kids to watch Friday the 13th or something like that. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the thing though. I mean, back in the day when these movies came out, like 1931, and even before that, with Lon Chaney stuff like The Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame, that was like X-rated. They were horror movies
yeah,
back.
even
People fainting in the aisles.
yeah, yeah. Well, and they did have that those movies now, but they didn't play it until regular theaters.
Yeah, yeah.
But so uh, Eric said you do some special effects and everything. So what's some advice for people who maybe want to get into the special effects realm of picture making?
It's a really hard business to get into, obviously, and there is a lot of competition. I think the earlier you can get started, the better. But you have to be prepared for failure after failure after failure. I don't like being Mr. Negative, but the thing is with materials and stuff like that, there's always that hard time in your life before it gets easier. And then it's just like acting or being a musician. You have your tryouts. You have to kind of prove yourself. And a lot of times, like even with the interns that I might have at my shop, they come in and it's like I kind of have to judge where they are with their abilities. So for the first few months, they might just be helping with sweeping the floor or cleaning brushes or just being an extra set of hands. So you do have to have the ability to stay with it for the long term. It's a long game thing.
Yeah, definitely. What that comes with any profession. I mean, so um, you know, see, uh, anybody from the if you ever met anybody or know anybody from the TV show Face Off where they would show special effects?
Uh, yeah, I was actually on season 9.
Oh, I, I it's hard to find it streaming, so
Yeah.
I haven't really watched it. But do you want to say how far you got, or is it embarrassing?
No, I was always the old guy. I'd watched in season 1, so I usually knew how it went. You had the people like me that were older, they were fitting a demographic, and they were usually gone in the first 5 episodes. And I was surprised how long I did go. I don't know if you want me to give it away for those who haven't seen it, but yeah,
Well,
I was
his,
surprised how far I went.
my view is history is not spoiler, so it is history. So
Yeah, it's now 8 or 9 years ago. That's the
yeah.
weird thing. This the
Well,
bizarre how
I
long ago.
love I love that TV show. I wish
Yeah.
I know it was streaming on Netflix, but they don't have all the seasons. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, they have 2 of them, and I've looked from time to time, and it jumps around. It was on Universal on the what was it, the
Peacock.
Universal Net Peacock, and then it jumped over to Netflix, and it's all over the place. And what's weird is that it hits all these places differently. So like overseas in South America, they're showing my season, and all of a sudden I'll get a bunch of fan mail and stuff like that because
Right.
they're just seeing it for like the first time.
Right.
But it's got its longevity, that show does.
I loved watching that show back in the day. So
Yeah. Well, you might
um,
have a chance again.
maybe
Now, not
let's.
many people know this, but if you follow Glenn Hetrick, and I got to know him on the show, and he is super, super nice, but he let it slip over the holidays that he was looking forward to something new starting. So I would pay attention to that and watch Sci-Fi, because it seems like there is a lot of buzz about possibly bringing it back.
Face Off Next Generation.
Yeah, we hope. I mean, they tried it with this is something that nobody, you ask them, even the most fervent fans of Face Off, they don't know this. But there was an actual spin-off, and it went for like 5 or 6 shows, I think, but it was called Game Face. And if you remember the show format, they used to have those little quick challenges that they had, and then
Right.
they had focus challenges. Well, this particular show focused only on these little tiny challenges, kind of like Chopped or any of the other food shows. I think my dogs are coming in from their break. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, dogs do what dogs do. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Eric's dog is going to make his cameo. So,
very cool. Yeah, we love our dogs here. You know, we've got a
yeah,
kind of our own version of Todd Browning's Freaks. One of our dog is a three-legged corgi, and we got another one that looks like he caught a stopped bus.
yeah.
So
Well, that's really cool. I even would love to. One of the other shows I even liked, it was that Jim Henson's Creature Shop. That was really cool
yes.
too. So, how did you get into special effects? So
I was actually really lucky. I started this venture probably back in the mid '80s in Orlando, and it was right before they kind of made their bid for Florida being Hollywood East. So we had just opened Universal Studios. They had just opened the Disney MGM Studios at the time, they called it. So there
it's
was
still
that
it's still MGM Studios in my heart.
What's that?
It's still MGM Studios in my heart, whatever they call it now.
Yeah, I can't. And they've changed the name, and it's weird because even Pleasure Island, if you're familiar with Florida, everyone knew Pleasure Island. That's where you went for Disney. And now that's something like Disney Springs. So I don't know. But yeah, when I got started in it, though, it was like a really good time for independent artists and filmmakers and that sort of thing. I really hung out at this one shop. It was that makeup shop that everyone dreamed of having in their backyard. We had Paramount Theatrical, or Magdalene's World of Entertainment. And there I met a bunch of people, but I can't go without mentioning Alan Duckworth. He's been one of my friends since I was like 15. Rick Gonzalez, who is a makeup artist on Day of the Dead. And then Michael Davey, which was really cool. Michael Davey is more of a chemist than a special effects artist, although he does both. But he comes up with some of the most amazing makeups, like the actual stuff that we use. So that all around that time is when I was coming up, and it was a good time for a kid to love special effects and get a few people that were willing to talk to him about it, because things could be very quiet and hush hush back then. They kept a lot of secrets. But I was very fortunate. I have good mentors that kind of took me under their wing, both in special effects and what now has become kind of, I would say, a parallel career for me, is doing action figure prototypes and collectible prototypes and stuff for the toy and model industry. And one of my mentors in that was Bill Merkline, who you wouldn't know his name, except if you were a kid of the 80s, the 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joes back in the day. He sculpted many of them. So having him in my corner saying, "Here, try this thing," because there was nowhere you could go to learn, how to make action figures except for like the technical industry. So,
do you have any like maybe dream projects you would love to do in the special effects realm?
I think at this point, because I got to work on several movies that were like dream projects at the time, especially. I think for me, the holy grail would be anything Universal Monsters, and that would be, of course, either film, or we're working really hard to possibly get on the cruise at Epic Universe, because they're doing a huge Universal Monster expansion out there. So we know several of the people that are out there, including the art director, who was my art lead when we worked on Galaxy's Edge. So kind of went from one theme park to another. So we're hoping that post-COVID now, that will be a thing.
Um, uh, no, that would be really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, like Eric and I were talking about doing, since both properties are going to be public domain soon, we were going to talk about doing Dracula versus the Monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, since the Universal movies are going to be public domain soon, it's like, figure out what Universal is trademarked, because we definitely don't want to get too by Universal, but we were talking about doing it legally, not legally, a sort of a spiritual sequel to the Universal movies, but kind of its own thing as well. But we already have the monster casted. He's an actor locally here in Kansas. We officially broke a Guinness Book World Record. We cast the tallest actor ever to play the monster.
Yeah.
At 7'7".
Yeah, and I'm like, you're perfect. And also, what also helps is that knowing that he did play the monster once before in a play, which makes sense. Is because the book is already public domain, and so people can make plays and movies, whatever they want, off the book. But knowing that the Karloff movie from 31 is going to be public domain here soon, probably we'll see a lot of plays based off of that one as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And Daniel Gilchrist is the actor's name. He's it's weird. He's 7'7", but he kind of has literally almost Boris's face almost. So
yeah. And that's why he's so perfect. We do have someone in mind for Dracula, but we don't want to say just yet. But yeah, Junebug here was the one who first brought that up to me. It's because that so you probably heard about how they made that Winnie the Pooh horror, right? So yeah, and so that was the movie that really got us to talk about. We of course already knew what public domain was, but it wasn't until when that movie came out, it really got us to really brainstorm about, okay, what are some public domain properties or soon to be public domain properties that we can take advantage of. We were brainstorming all these ideas, and then once we both realized the Karloff and Lugosi movies from 31 are going to be public domain here soon, we're like, let's do that. Especially considering that both of us grew up huge fans of the Universal monsters back when we were kids, and so like for all of us to do a movie about that would be such a huge honor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that pays homage to that, because you got to realize that was a long time ago, 1931, and a lot of the kids, my kids are an exception because they've been raised on the classics, but a lot of kids don't know who that version of Frankenstein 1931 and of course Dracula 1931, they haven't seen that. They don't know the beauty of it. It's barely now. What's weird is that, when we were younger, they had Bram Stoker's Dracula. And now the kids today are looking at that like we did the classics back when we were kids. So it's bizarre.
Well, and now you have kids that, like who want to be picture makers, and they don't even know a movie past 1985.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's what I've told people. If you want to be a good movie maker in general, if you look at the advice that all the silent directors who made it with sound said, never forget that movies were once silent. Every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those movies, they just came out that interesting time period in history where they were early talkies. And that's one of the reasons why I think that even Dracula especially works so much, because it's practically almost a silent movie.
Yes. Yes. And it's fun. Those two movies as well, the two first Universal monsters under Carl Laemmle Jr., they had no soundtrack, which was amazing. It actually brought you into that film without having the musical score. And Karloff, not saying a word, sold it on pantomime. So, I mean, that is directing at its finest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And then, so I'm currently in college, to pursue filmmaking, and this last fall, I took film history. So despite the title of the class, it's really not about the whole history of filmmaking. It really is teaching you the Hollywood formula, about having a character arc and all that.
Mhm.
So while taking that course, so that was the course that got me to realize who the main character should actually
Yeah.
be for Dracula versus Frankenstein. And then that got me to realize we need to make the monster the main character. It's because it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think many have tried to do that. I mean, Hammer touched on it a little bit, but it's very hard to write the monster as the main character. I mean, the closest thing we had to what was the Frankenstein 1979, I think it was, or something like that. It was a made for television show, made for television movie,
With
and it featured the opposite kind of Frankenstein. He started off real attractive and then started to rot as the movie went on. And that was like the first one where
yeah,
he was like the main character up until
that's
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Robert De Niro.
that was Dan Curtis's, right? With Bo Svensson as the monster.
I think so. Yeah, it was. It was. I'm drawing a blank on it. If I had IMDb, I could pull it up. But yeah, it was. It was a very unique look on it, almost as unique as Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, which is a whole nother ballpark.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that Eric have talked about too a little bit, it was going into leading into the next question. We were saying that there needs to be other dinosaur properties that
Oh
are
yeah,
franchises
definitely.
rather than Jurassic Park. What would you suggest for that? Other dinosaur properties maybe.
Oh my gosh, you could go back to the basics. I always loved like the Arthur Conan Doyle and stuff like that. That was fantasy, sci-fi, and dinosaurs
Well,
all in one.
well, yeah, because that's a whole series of books. Professor Challenger, you could easily do that.
Yeah.
Some of the other books would be quite interesting to
Yes.
adapt.
Yes. And
Um,
actually, he was on our show not too long ago, but Donald Glut, you guys know his name if you're a Universal Monster fan. If
Yeah.
you're a kid of the 70s, especially, this guy, he wrote a lot of the cartoons of our youth, and he did Land of the Lost. He worked on the old Shazam, the Sid and Marty Krofft Shazam, but his passion is dinosaurs. And if you go to his website, the Donald Glut website, you can see all the dinosaur stuff that he has. We're talking about life-size heads and stuff.
That's cool.
Awesome.
I guess directors you would love to work with.
Oh boy. I used to say like the Steven Spielbergs and the George Lucases, but honestly nowadays I'm more into the independent filmmakers. I think there's a lot more originality with them. And some would argue that they're not independent filmmakers, but like Rob Zombie, he's kind of out there in his own fringe and he's doing a bang up job. I actually liked the Munsters. I liked his take on the Munsters, and a lot of people didn't, but I saw a lot of love that was put into that. And then of course Guillermo del Toro, he's not like mainstream. People always think of him as being kind of on the fringe, and he started out very independent.
Right. I mean, Rob Zombie, what I did like about the Munsters is it was not a Rob Zombie movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And people criticize that.
Well, and I'm like, I actually kind of appreciate that because, I mean, listen, I'm not my biggest criticism of Rob Zombie, and I'm with all respect to Rob Zombie, I do appreciate his films, but like, I don't really want to hear every other word be a swear word. It's like that's not really the best dialogue.
Oh,
yeah.
And
what I like about the Munsters is that it's like, man, I can kind of see a little love here. Like, I will say, if I'm just nitpicking, it's more. I didn't really like the Technicolor look that he did, the fake Technicolor, but it kind of added.
Now that was
something.
Universal. Universal insisted on that. He wanted to do it as a black and white.
Yeah, I heard that, but the fake Technicolor, I guess you, and so special effects artists you would love to work with too, maybe, because
there are so many. I mean, I have my dream list. A lot of them are ones that aren't really acting nowadays, but I've never had an opportunity to work with Rick Baker. And Rick Baker is, of course, he's one of those that if you're a special effects artist, chances are you got in because of something he did. American
Right.
Werewolf in London was the first thing I was aware
Mhm.
that he worked on, and it blew me away. And I think
Mhm.
that I got to meet him when we did that show Game Face that I was telling you about, and he is so humble. But now he's technically retired. But I see more of his work now than when he was working in Hollywood. If you check it out, his stuff, he is on all the social medias,
Mhm.
particularly Instagram, and he does.
Right. Uh,
Yeah, now you're like sideways, and I can't really hear you now.
yeah.
Still can't hear you.
Well,
Sorry, people, about the technical difficulties.
try coming back in again.
Yeah. Shame that we can't hear him now.
Can you try clicking off and coming back in again?
Here, I will text him.
Well, funny, I had one more question. Now, worst case scenario, there's going to be two of them right now.
Yeah, but since that you're the moderator, you can just mute one of them.
Or kick one of them out.
Yeah, do that too. Yeah.
Well, darn. Editing.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, I had to do a lot of editing with the Sarah Karloff interview because there was a lot of filler in
Okay.
that one. All right, he's back.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Testing. Still can't hear you.
You want to try the phone call?
I can't.
I always say at this point, just give them a call.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna.
I have to turn my Bluetooth back on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with StreamYard too much, and I have at least two more questions here. Just call them right now.
Still cannot hear you. Here, maybe boot him out and then have him just. Oh wait. All right. Maybe now it will work.
Yeah. Well, it looks like I'm setting up editing.
Yeah. Well, you have to now. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, StreamYard.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, darn. Now
I
I
had to
gotta stay.
reboot it.
Now I
I'm
gotta stay
sorry.
editing.
It's all right. I mean, gotta do what you gotta do.
So let's just do a redo of that question. Special effects artists you would love to work with.
Okay, mine are all the old timers. I think Rick Baker is definitely one of them. From American Werewolf in London, that was my first real knowledge of what he did. But since then, he's done so much. I mean, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and all horror movies. He's actually retired now, but he does more work now than he did when he was in Hollywood, and they're all personal fun projects. So I admire him. And then probably just for Wild Ride, I'd have to say Steve Johnson. He was one of the pioneers on Ghostbusters, obviously in the original days. But he's kind of like one of those cowboys. You either love him or you hate him, and
Right.
I just think he's fascinating.
One of them that would be cool to work with, but I know he's like fully retired, and from what I've heard, he's doing real estate now. Rob Bottin.
Who's that? Oh
Rob Bottin.
yeah. He
I
actually
heard
went
he's
into
doing real estate now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he did.
The Thing.
I was not expecting that one.
Well, I think that would be even cool to see him come back because he was one of the best special effects guys that I mean, the fact that like Dick Smith hired him at like 15, along with Rick Baker, and like amazing guy, and then he got the job for the Thing at like what 22, something like that. 23?
Yeah, he was one of the younger guys, and I mean, people might not know Rob Bottin, but they know his work. And one of the most fascinating pieces was the RoboCop suit, which he did in a few weeks. A couple of weeks for a suit like that is unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, but I would love to even get him on this show but I've heard he's doing real estate now or something like that. Is what I've heard.
Yeah. Good luck with that. I've tried with some of my contacts, and he's kind of bid farewell to it. It's a shame, but I think he got so burned at it and burned out at it when he was doing it in the 80s and 90s.
Well, I mean,
Shame.
I would love it. That would be awesome. And I saved this question for last. I guess most underrated special effects guy.
Oh, there's so many. There are so many. There's that category though where you see their work all the time, and then you don't know the person behind it. But one that I was really, really fond of was Andy Schoenberg. Now, Andy Schoenberg, he worked with K&B Effects. He is a hyper-realistic sculptor in that he can do transformative makeups. And the work that he does has always inspired me. I think he's very humble, though. I'll tell you this. I met him several years ago at Spooky Empire. And there's this wall of greatness walking towards me, including Greg Nicotero and Kevin... why can't I remember his name? Kevin, one of the other sculptors, the lead sculptors for K&B at the time.
Right.
And Andy Schoenberg is with him. I walked up to him and I'm like, oh, I need to shake your hand because this guy did the most phenomenal lab work, the sculpting and the molding and stuff like that. And that's the backbone of the studio right there.
Right.
Yeah. And it's rather interesting you mentioned Andy Schoenberg because I actually got to meet him back in 2012, actually.
Is that part of your autograph collection?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Humble as anything.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and it turns out, from my understanding, he actually went to high school in my area.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
You never know where
I'm like, wow, that's so awesome.
Right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we didn't have many people. We had the trivia for Orlando is back when Universal Studios opened. We had Joey Fatone because he was over at Dr. Phillips High School in their drama department. So he played like I think it was the Wolfman. And then he was replaced by Wayne Brady eventually. And you know him from like Whose Line Is It Anywhere and stuff like that. So that's our brush with fame here locally.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a small town in Kansas, so there's like, I mean, the closest we have is like some of the big name people from Kansas now, like Paul Rudd and Jason Sudeikis, but they're more into the Kansas City area. So, and that's like an hour or so away. And then Rob Riggle, but really that's pretty much it. But Eric, your turn.
All right, so let me get started with my questions now. So before eventually having you on, I was curious to see if you had an IMDb page, and I saw that you do, and I saw that you worked with Tyler Perry like on one of the Medea movies. It was the Halloween one. So just out of curiosity, how was it like to work with him?
I didn't work with him because he was on set. We were special effects division, if you can even have something like that. What we were hired to do was create 50 zombies, and 40 of them were going to be background zombies, and 10 of them were going to be heroes. So they were going to be a little bit closer to the camera. So we went out on. It was very, very cold. It was and felt there when we started. And these poor guys, they had to run. Remember, probably they're on the back street. But that whole thing, it was a 24-hour makeup shoot. We did all the makeups. They went to set, and then 24 hours later, 6 o'clock in the morning, they came back in to have all their makeup taken off. But I will say this: he's one of the most efficient movie filmmakers ever. He 7 out before he.
Sorry for this, folks, who kind of, if you kind of got a little word of that, he's using his data on his phone because he's having tech issues on his end. But I think they got the gist of what you're saying. So, but Eric.
Yeah. Okay.
Did it dip out?
It was kind of like it was, you sounded like you were stuttering, basically, you know. But I think people will get the gist of it.
I'm sorry.
It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. So pretty much from the gist of it, what I can tell you said, like, basically Tyler Perry like was really good to work with, and it was a long day, a 24-hour filming day, and yeah, like you created zombies and like the good guys and the bad guys. And is there anything that I'm missing?
Just that it was asked. So that day, still, I just wanted to make sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you might have to leave again and then come back because I barely heard anything you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, do we just want to do the phone?
Okay, I'll try that. I'll be right back.
We'll just try the rest with the phone call. Or
I'm sorry, people. We're doing the best that we possibly can. Okay, turn that back on.
oh my. Oh,
it was already on. Duh. Sorry, people. We're doing the best that we can.
Well, remember, folks, he's having, the whole U.S. right now is having a bunch of storms, so tech issues and everything else.
We're doing the best we can. That's all that matters.
I guess be pissed off at whoever controls the weather.
Yeah.
Be pissed off at that guy.
All right, see if he's gonna come back.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of editing for tomorrow at 9.
Do what you got to do, man. But yeah, Scott definitely seems like a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, he is. Ironic. As he joins again.
Hello, see if this works.
Hello again. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm sorry, guys. If you'd rather do it another time and try it on.
No, it's gonna premiere tomorrow at 9. I'll probably just have to stay up and do some editing because you're.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Eric.
All right, so tell us more about your own action figure and collectible studio.
That would be the Scott Fensterer Sculpture Studio. We do prototypes for the toy and collectible industry as well as props and stuff like that. So we've had the pleasure of working on a lot of different projects some of them are small. We get them out quick. Like we did a lot of sculpts for Mego when they first came out. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, but we did a number of dream projects with them. including Gal Gadot Wonder Woman figure. We were able to do the prototype and got approved like, very fast. Nowadays, though, I really am proud of the work that we're doing with Ink Fusion Empire, because we have done a number of figures for basically horror's icons. So we're talking about a figure that we did for Robert Englund. We did one for Kane Hodder. We did one for the late, great Stan Lee and the late, great Rico Browning. So we've had, I don't know if I have him nearby, but we also did the gentleman that did Bishop from Aliens, if you know him, and Pumpkin. But yeah, we were able to do his figure, and I've got a video. I wish I could show it, but it's a video of him playing with his own figure and actually digging it, which is cool because he always looks so gruff on film, and here he's playing with the figure like a little kid. It was great.
There's definitely an innuendo joke in there.
Yes, playing with himself, absolutely. I'll say it because we're all thinking it.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
hilarious.
well, with Eric's YouTube series, that things that pissed me off, I thought, man, how cool would it be to get action figures of our characters, So
yeah. Well,
Eric.
A lot of people don't know this, but I also have done figures for Robot Chicken season 5. So I did the head sculpts for a lot of cool ones on there. So doing hosts and internet people, it wouldn't be that far off.
Awesome. Awesome.
Where is our buddy? You got? Hey, producer
That's
lady,
exciting.
can you see if you can find that Kane Hodder? I'd love to show them that one.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Yeah,
we've got my little museum here. If you've ever seen Monster Manor, this is where we shoot it, and it's just
awesome.
in our home. So we've got all these figures laying around and stuff. We've been able to also, you mentioned about the toys and collectibles end of what I do. We've also been able to recently work with a lot of stars with bringing their own personal material and merchandise to their tables. One of which was Big Daddy. He's become a pretty good friend of ours here, but Eugene Clark, who played Big Daddy in Land of the Dead, and an up and coming name, which is, he's been around for 20 years, but this guy, he's got a new movie coming. I think it's on Netflix now, Angel Baby.
Okay.
But Doug Tate is his name, and we got to do one of him. And since he was,
they just don't know they know him.
Yeah. He's also the Sasquatch, from the Jack Links. So here's a prototype. We'll have a little bit of a show and tell here.
Oh,
this
that's
is the original
awesome.
prototype of Big Daddy, and that
cool.
started out as a scan. That's a scan we did of him. I don't know how clear that's coming in, but now he has this as an exclusive piece at his shows, and then he can sign right here when he does his shows.
We did one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're the weirdest people because we have heads laying all over the place. This is Douglas Tate's head.
Oh, it is,
So
yeah.
that was my NECA figures. Let's see. This one is, I'm showing you all the heads. I'm sorry. We got to get some figures here. But that's
Oh, good.
Hey.
Yeah. So we got
Hey,
him.
I always loved show and tell in school.
Yeah.
I also did.
Kane Hodder.
Wait, is that Kane? Oh, yeah, that is Kane Hodder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say Kane Hodder because early last year, Kane Hodder's agent actually gave me the keys to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh yeah. He's an awesome guy and another humble guy. I'm finding most of the humble people are in horror. I did get to work with this guy as well through Ink Fusion, and this was before he passed away. That was quite an honor getting to meet him and with the whole team.
Oh, you are lucky that you got
Yeah.
to the legend himself, Stan Lee.
That's cool.
We almost got to do his hands, which would have been iconic. This was in the last 2 years he was doing shows, but we were trying to get a life cast of the famous Spider-Man hands and his hand holding, a famous pen. But he got really, really tired. We knew that he wasn't doing well. And then, of course, within the next year, he was gone, unfortunately. So it was a shame but it's such an honor to get with him when we did, but it was kind of bittersweet that he passed so soon after.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it really goes back to that post that I made about Rico Browning and the Universal
Yes.
Monster Group, and so that right there was a real wake up call to me. I'm like, all these people who I want to get a hold of, they're not going to be around forever, and so the time to do it is now.
Well, and that's even the philosophy of this show: sit down by the fire, and even Junebug Films might hopefully company here pretty soon is shoot for the stars, because hey, if we can message them and the message goes through, you never know who could say yes. So
that's true. And we were talking about monsters.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
What?
They say
Yeah.
no?
What's the worst thing that could happen? They could say no, right? And I heard of this gentleman for quite a while, and it started out as a gift for him. We had him on our show first season, but you guys know who this is, right?
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
So we're good friends with Dan Roebuck now because we said, hey, you want to come on our show? So it's like those moments that you miss are the ones you regret. And I would say to any filmmaker, anyone that's out there, collectors of this stuff or autograph hounds or whatever, don't wait. You got to take the chances, and more importantly, it's good to tell people how you feel about them now rather than eulogize them, because by then they can't about it.
Well, Eric, why don't you, if you can, why don't you show it your little show and tell moment about who definitely inspired you to
Okay, well,
out.
First I want to grab my Rico Browning signed mask. Now, this was a mask that I got after he died. I was like, hey, it sucks that I didn't get to meet him, but at least I could get his autograph. And I saw this signed Gilman mask. I'm like, hey, this is probably one of the coolest things I could get him to sign. And it was the very last mask left. And I'm like, hey, I probably won't get another signed Gilman mask from him ever again. So I grabbed it when I could. And and my other prized possession, interesting you mentioned Rick Baker doing his live action Grinch remake, because when I was a kid, even still to this day, I have been a humongous fan of Jim Carrey since I was a kid. I actually remember going to see the Jim Carrey Grinch movie at the theater with my parents. I'll never forget how hard that I was laughing. I was laughing so hard that I was in tears. And every year on Christmas, I will always pop in that movie, because to me, it's just not Christmas if I don't pop that movie in. And then I remember one day I was at a cabin with my family, and the mask happened to have came on TV, and I pointed right at the TV, right at Jim Carrey, and I said that I want to meet him. And I wanted to meet him for the longest time. 2022, when he did Sonic the Hedgehog 2, he announced that he's going to retire. That right there told me, oh no, my time to do it is running out. And so it turns out that I have a friend of mine who actually met Jim Carrey. And then I told her, how much I want to meet him, because Jim Carrey really has been a huge inspiration to me. I actually argue that Jim Carrey actually could be a motivational speaker, because Jim Carrey has really put out some really incredible stuff with advice about life and all that. So I reached out to Jim Carrey. I wrote him a very heartfelt letter. And my friend who met him also put in a good word for me. 4 months later, after I sent that letter, Jim Carrey sent me that.
For those who can't see it, that's Eric's signed autograph of Jim Carrey. Probably one of your most prized possessions.
Oh, definitely, yeah. That's something that I've waited on.
But it's
practically my whole entire life.
But it is kind of weird, though. I mean, think about it. Jim Carrey, that is close to your bed, so essentially Jim Carrey's watching you sleep at night.
Never thought of it that way, but
I mean, he sees you when you're sleeping, right? He knows
He
when
knows
you're awake.
when you're awake.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
So
You
going back
probably
to the
know
show.
his link to horror then.
What
What
one of
was
his
Jim Carrey's link to horror? Do you?
yes, one of his early roles before he got famous, he actually did a vampire movie. It was
Once
called
Bitten.
Once Bitten.
Yes.
And,
With
and, well,
Warren
and then there's
Hutton.
well, and then there's Earth Girl So Easy, which could definitely be a horror movie, but in a different way.
And there's
That was
also debate.
a horrible movie.
Yeah, and there's also debate if the number 23 is a horror movie. I say it's more of a drama thriller mystery, not really a horror movie in my
Yeah.
opinion, but hey, if someone wants to call it that, hey, that is totally fine. So my next question, going back to the Gillman thing that I showed you, you showed me on Facebook that you made a Gillman costume.
Yes.
Wait, I I do recall you mentioning Rico Browning, but did you ever get to meet Rico or Julia Adams or Ben Chapman or anybody involved with the making of
I did.
all the films?
I did. There was a time, it was probably, gosh, now 20 years ago, there was a show in New Jersey called Chiller. And they had all the stars from the classics that were still alive, including Sarah Karloff. And then Julie Adams was there. We had Rico Browning and Ben Chapman. And I could only see him for a short while. And it goes back to what you were saying about, honoring that that moment and trying to get what you waited for your whole life, because shortly after this, we lost Ben. And then the next thing we know, Julie's gone. And now, of course, Rico's gone. So just being involved in seeing them, I never thought that I would, have anything to do with them past that. But in 2019, I did a show called Gillibration right here in Ocala. Many of you probably know, of course, Creature from the Black Lagoon was filmed at Wakulla Springs, and it was filmed right here in Silver Springs. A lot of the parts, and Rico Browning was at our show, and that was one of the last shows he did when he signed there. So quite an honor. But yeah, that was my brush with the people from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, cherish those moments that you have now. So
well,
that's a harsh
you mentioned Sarah Karloff. We she was actually our very first interview on this show, which
she was,
and,
yeah.
And what I can't, hopefully we can actually get her back, because we would love to have her back. Because
oh yeah,
and then thank you to your dog, Eric, who probably saved the interview.
Yeah, definitely.
But he made an unannounced cameo, and then she says she wants to see his dog again. So
yeah.
she's.
But yeah, so besides Godzilla and King Kong, because I feel like those two would be the obvious, what kaiju would you like to do the special effects for?
Oh boy, probably Gamera. We actually have a tortoise here, and I named her Gamera, so I'm partial to that one.
Well, I was even talking, the right. I think, I swear the names always change. It's either Katakawa Dae or just Katakawa now. But I'm thinking, the rights can't be that much for an American remake of Gamera. Why does somebody do that? And then we can finally maybe get Toho to merge, and we can finally get Godzilla versus Gamera.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you would get the monster
tied up. Yeah, I'm surprised Gamera hasn't made an appearance with all the fighting, and this new one that they have coming out is supposed to be even more of those titans coming together. So maybe we'll get to see a Gamera. I don't know.
We might.
Yeah. I did actually get to see Gamera Rebirth, and I liked it. This is kind of definitely had that Stranger Things vibe. But,
yeah. You know, they always keep you guessing with some of these. I mean, I haven't seen the new one yet, but you know, the last one, it was different with the whole, I don't want to give anything away for those that might not have seen it, but the last Toho Godzilla that they did, what was it? The
Godzilla
-1.
That one's the new one. There was one before that where he
Shin
kind
Godzilla.
of,
Yeah,
yes,
I believe you're talking about Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, that was a unique take on it as well. I'm never disappointed in the Toho stuff. I've been disappointed, like by the Matthew Broderick Godzilla several years ago, but never a Toho.
Hey, I will say this. I'll defend Godzilla a little bit. It's a good kaiju movie, but I just feel like it's miscast a little bit. Like, I love Matthew Broderick, but like, I just don't think he really works. Like, I heard that like they wanted. I heard they at that time they wanted Bruce Campbell maybe for that part.
Interesting choice.
I even heard
there was a lot of talk about that.
I even heard at that time apparently I even heard, now this could just be one of the Hollywood rumors, who knows, because I haven't really heard, and sadly you can't ask him now, but I even heard that because Roland Emmerich was a big fan of him, he wanted Norm Macdonald for that part.
Interesting.
Wow. I mean, you never know what they're thinking, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I think those with those guys especially, they had a unique take on it, and you know, I can't say anything bad about Patrick Tatopoulos either, because his designs were really tight, and I did get to work with him on when I was on Face Off, so I'm not going to say anything bad about that man. I love his design work, but you're right, the relationship between the characters was a little wonky on that.
I think Godzilla. I mean, I think it's a good kaiju movie is a thing, but it's not really Godzilla. Like I think I would more jokingly call it. It's more so maybe Gigantus than Zilla, but
yeah, definitely. And I think, and this you guys probably are intimately, you know, familiar with. The problem with filmmaking is never the filmmaker. It's always producers that come in and say, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. And sometimes they got their finger on the wrong pulse. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, this is okay. I always like to call it. It's producers that want to be projectors. You know, they want to sit there and say, I want this in the movie. Like, that doesn't really work. And I think that's. I'm not trying to bash young filmmakers now, but I feel like young filmmakers now have kind of lost their, I'm going to say, guts a little bit, like willing to say no to the producer, because like, if directors back then said yes to the director, Psycho would not be as great as it is, because Alfred Hitchcock found a way to said no to. And so, and a lot of directors back then were willing to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So, but I'm not, you know, do what best serves you. If you're the director, do what best you think serves your story.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that would be a word of caution to filmmakers also is, you know, the big thing with the main studios like Universal, Warner Brothers, even Disney, they're not making films for Americans. They're making film for the foreign markets in a lot of cases. And that was the big fail on the female run and led Ghostbusters, is that the foreign market wanted to see something that the Americans, it fell flat on. So I think at any time you have you know, like the producers or a movie distribution company coming and saying, we want you to do the film like this, they're never going to keep your vision in mind. And we wouldn't have Jaws, we wouldn't have Psycho, like you said. We wouldn't have half of these movies that we love, because it would have just been played for a different audience.
Right.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
definitely. Yeah.
it's one of the things is, I guess, especially when you get hired with the Universal Studios, or any of the major studios, before you sign anything, tell them you want your lawyer to read it first, and tell them what you want.
Absolutely.
Because as I've told people too, especially Eric, Hollywood is full of sharks. You got to show that you're the killer whale.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I'm not. And it's gonna be interesting to see the comments on that one.
Let's just hope
it's true though.
Well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be shrewd, or your vision is going to get skewed by people that really don't have any dogs in the fight.
Right. So.
So I think I have a feeling what your answer is going to be, given that you said it was the movie that inspired you. But maybe you'll say otherwise. Out of all the Universal monster movies, which is your favorite one?
Oh boy, I always get caught on this because it's pretty much a tie between Frankenstein and The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those were my two favorite movies. Karloff's portrayal of the monster, or the creature as people want to call him, that was always my favorite, and I think that portrayal is always going to be my favorite. But as far as the character, I also got to give it to the Gillman, and I've been fortunate enough to do both here. So I mean, I've got a life-sized Karloff Frankenstein staring at me in the room here, and over my shoulder is the mask from The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I mean, I've been very, very blessed to be surrounded by these monsters. You know, it's crazy, it's surreal. I never thought that my life would be like this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I can say the same thing about Kane Hodder's agent being kind enough to give me the keys to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Interesting enough, that happened on Valentine's Day. So yeah, and so that was quite the Valentine's Day present. And yeah, especially considering on that day, I was calling agent after agent. All of them were telling me no. Then finally, I landed somewhere like where somebody said yes. And going back to what you said earlier here, in Hollywood, there's a lot of rejection, and that's something that you better embrace.
Well, I'm never going to take full credit for it, but even I kind of gave you a little push there because I just gave you the classic advice. What did I give you?
Yeah, so the classic advice. So when I first talked to Sarah Karloff, you have to understand, she's somebody who I've known about since I was in the 4th grade. And so a year ago in March, I finally got to talk to her. Granted, it was over Zoom. It wasn't in person, but I still got to talk to her. I remember just completely awestruck having her right in front of me, knowing that, oh my goodness, she's the daughter of Boris Karloff, known about her since I was in 4th grade, and I was so awestruck, and I was trying so hard, like, to be as professional as I could. But and then my co-host Junebug gave me the classic advice: hey, everybody poops.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
At least I hope not.
Yeah. I'll tell you though, I would love to be in, Kirk Hammett. He's another big monster kid. If you've seen his book, he has a book called Too Much Monster Business. Yeah. Phenomenal. And he's lucky enough to moderate all of the heirs to the Universal Kingdom. He's had, and Victoria Price, Vincent Price's daughter. But he has had all of those for interviews, and I would love to see that in person. I couldn't imagine that greatness all in one room.
I would love to. I mean, that would be awesome, even to get Kirk Hammett. Besides, being at Metallica. I mean, just the fact that how big of a fan he is of the monsters. Like, I love his guitar straps that he makes for the Universal Monsters. Even I even saw a guitar he had where it was all the Universal Monsters on the guitar. So
yeah,
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think having the money he has makes him probably the preeminent monster kid, because looking at his book though, he has all of those things. So it's like looking through that catalog. You're like, it's the virtual got it, need it, want it, you know?
Right.
But he has so many things like that, and it spills into everything. He has got to win at least at some point a Rondo Award for, you know, greatest, biggest monster kid around, because he is just fantastic.
Well,
and he's spread the legacy to a new generation.
Well, maybe Fangoria could give him some sort of, or, you know, Fangoria could give him like the chainsaw or something, like Lifetime Achievement Award or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm really big on people that forward that legacy, like him. And of course, Guillermo del Toro is doing amazing things to bring the legacy of the monsters back to life. He's got Frankenstein, his version cast now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
what somebody who's a big collector that I was telling we should reach out to for is Bob Burns, who has.
I don't know that he's doing interviews anymore. I think he's probably too ill now to do, if he's still alive. I've heard different stories about him, but
he is still alive. He's still alive. I don't, like I said, he is. I mean, he's close to. He's going to be 90 pretty next year. So, but hey, I mean, we could always reach out, and if he doesn't respond, oh well. But at least we reached out. So
exactly. Yeah.
Again, you've asked. You know, that's the thing.
And Victoria Price,
I regret never being I'm sorry?
Victoria Price would definitely be cool to get on the podcast as well, because I've listened to her, you know, just the
She's a very well-spoken person.
Well, her father was too, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I said it before, you know, I even said this to Lynn Lugosi, who we've interviewed, said that the thing about Bela and what Vincent and Bela had what they had in common is they could overact, and it didn't come off as overacting. You know, they had that gift. So.
Yep. And I know what you mean. I mean, they were also both stage actors, so everything had to be projected, and I think that's why it translates so well to silver screen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you'll never be a good actor unless you actually go on stage, you know, because that's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Eric, you've learned that. You just this year got your first play.
I did, yes. I got cast in The Tempest by William Shakespeare, and you know, my advice to actors going in theater: memorize your lines, and if you don't memorize your lines, like, just do not break character, just go with the flow. A really good example of that, when they were filming The Dark Knight, during that scene, like where Heath Ledger as the Joker was walking away from the hospital and pushing the button to explode it. When he pushed the button, it didn't work when it was supposed to, but Heath Ledger did not break character. And then he continued with that flow. So that's a really good example of not breaking character. And on top of that, be confident. Mm-hmm. I can't stress that enough. Be confident.
Well, Clark Gable, the first time he ever went on stage, he fell, and like there was basically no recovery from it, except Clark Gable recovered from by one line. He fell flat on his face the first moment he's ever on stage, and then he literally breaks the fourth wall to the audience and sits there and says, "Boy, I really fell for that one." and then they said that that's what made Clark Gable, because how he always just seemed to have, you know, that charm about him, you know, always a smile on his face.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So my next question: if you could do any makeup effects on any celebrity, meaning turn any celebrity into a monster for a movie, who would you pick?
Of all time or modern stars?
Yeah.
Let's do both.
That's a good point. Yeah, both.
I'll do one that's on the cusp of both. From the very beginning, I think probably the movie that did it for me was Die Hard with a Vengeance. But looking at Jeremy Irons' facial structure, he would have been the perfect monster if they were remaking the 1931 Frankenstein, or even a continuation.
Yeah.
He has that gaunt face, and
Definitely.
Yeah, a lot of that same kind of mannerisms as Karloff.
Well,
and it's rather interesting you said that, because when we interviewed Sarah Karloff, I actually asked her, who would you want to play Karloff in a biopic? That's who she picked.
So I'm just gonna say this. You know, the time to do that is now, because like get Jeremy Irons as, you know, maybe older Karloff and then cast some guy to play younger Karloff.
Yeah.
And because I mean,
we could definitely.
I would love to see him, because when she said that, I'm like, I never thought of him, but
exactly,
I could see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he was absolutely perfect, and he's got that British kind of sensibility and that voice. He'd be amazing. I loved him in the Batman. You know, he was just really, really good. Probably one of the better parts of that.
Yeah.
He still stops.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to say he's like an underrated actor, because people know who he is, but I'm going to say like underappreciated, if that makes sense.
Definitely unappreciated. I mean, yeah. But, I mean, he's been in so much that we haven't known. He was in one. God, I remember seeing it in the 80s, but not to turn the conversation blue, but he played like these twins against himself. Can't remember the name of it. I think it was maybe Body Double or something like that. But he played, on one hand, a gynecologist, and on the other hand, this very meek, timid. It was bizarre. So look it up on the IMDb, though. But it was one where Jeremy Irons played his own twin, and it was phenomenal.
Somebody in the chat can leave it too.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I especially love his voice. Like, if I could pick anybody to read me a book, I would love to have him read me a book, because his voice is just so awesome.
Well, ironic, because since, you know, I would love to find those audiobooks even of Karloff reading books, because they're out there. Like he was reading books, like he read like fairy tales and stuff like that, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to
between
find
that
those.
and I liked his series Thriller, where he just did the intros and outros and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I think those are all on YouTube right now. I'm not sure about the public domain status of them, or if they are public domain or what, but they're all on YouTube right now.
They might be. They're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you just had to do your research, I suppose. But my next question, besides the obvious Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee, who's your favorite actor to play Count Dracula?
Oh gosh, I got two for different reasons. My first would probably be Frank Langella. Frank Langella in the 70s was like the epitome, and he was the one that brought that romanticism to the character of Dracula, and what a cast in that film as well. But Frank Langella would be one of my favorite Draculas. The other one is your favorite. What's his name? He was in Dracula Untold, I think.
Luke Evans.
Luke Evans, yeah.
Luke Evans. I thought that was a very underrated Dracula.
It was.
Definitely.
I really actually like Luke Evans as an actor. You know, what I like about him, and speaking of Gable, like, it's like, is this like Gable's clone? Like, people don't.
Yeah.
He looks. Yeah, he has the ears, and then he even embraces it, has the mustache as well. Like Luke Evans, I've always. He's one of my favorite modern actors. Like, and actually, if it happens, he's actually one of my choices, even to be the next James Bond. But he might be a little old now.
Yeah, but I think he could pull it off.
James Bond was never spring chicken.
Yeah, that's true. Producer lady is giving her commentary in the back, but yeah, James Bond was never the spring chicken. He was for the young. So yeah, I agree with that.
Definitely. So, are there any particular creatures you like to draw in your spare time?
Oh, all of them. All of them. If I'm doodling, I'm usually my two big favorites, of course, are the monsters and the superheroes. And if I'm just doodling stuff next to me, it's always one of those. I just it kind of also ties me into my childhood and keeps that wonder, because I say this all the time, and you guys can probably relate. When you're doing something like this, the whimsy of making creatures and monsters and superheroes, you got to hang on to your inner Willy Wonka and Peter Pan. And it's the one thing that people lose the earliest, because life beats you down. So when I try to revive my Willy Wonka, I will break out one of the old pads and I'll start drawing and remember what got me into this, why I loved the fantasy and the dream of making these things one day.
Oh, definitely, yeah, and and they say the things from your childhood definitely can define who you are later as a person. Well, I can definitely testify to that, because with me and Jim Carrey, me and Universal Monsters, I mean, the Universal Monsters for me was like my very early intro to horror films, and knowing that horror films have defined practically my whole entire life. I mean, even at the school talent show when I was in 8th grade, I actually played the Halloween theme on the piano. And then out of all the gigs at that talent show that year, mine was the one that got the biggest applause. And who would ever think that someone playing the Halloween theme on the piano would get the biggest applause? But and I want to touch up upon you saying superheroes and monsters. A lot of people now argue that the Universal Monsters actually is the first cinematic universe, especially nowadays, like how Marvel really was the one who popularized it, but Universal did it first.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
They were the first ones that had that cohesive universe. I mean, the Frankenstein that we met in 1931, Dr. Frankenstein, he may have changed actors, but the character itself was handed down. We had Baron Frankenstein in Son of Frankenstein. We had, Dracula, Wolfman. All of these characters existed at the same time in that universe, with the exception of Gilman, who was much later. But that was a cohesive universe.
It was the first cinematic universe, but one of the things I would even argue, as far as connected universes, if you actually go back to it, Edgar Rice Burroughs and his stories, who made John Carter, Tarzan, and everything, all of his stories are connected too, which is then what Marvel later did. So without Edgar Rice Burroughs, there would probably be not a connected universe with Marvel. So, and I would love to see that made into a series now. The Burroughs verse, because I mean, I think John Carter definitely deserves a better adaptation. So
definitely. And especially after how Disney tried it, and they're hoping that it was going to be like their next big summer blockbuster, but it bombed. Well, I mean, that's a big ouch on their part.
Well, I think it's probably because you called it John Carter. I mean, it's like, who is that? My neighbor? That's a very common name. You should have called it the Princess of Mars.
So my final question.
Yeah.
What public domain icon or soon to be public domain icon would you like to do the effects for?
Oh, I would love to go back to one of the. I would like to go back to German Expressionism and tackle Nosferatu as it was intended. The Max Schreck version of Nosferatu, I think, as far as public domain, I would love to just play in that world.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought that it would be interesting if they did a Count Orlok type movie that it has no connection to Dracula. It's just Orlok. Because I do feel like Nosferatu, we know it's connected to Dracula, it's an unofficial adaptation, all that stuff, but I feel like it does kind of have this own vibe to it, and you could make Bulwer, or the Van Helsing character, however you're supposed to pronounce it, Bulwer or something like that.
Professor Bulwer, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not German, so I don't. I'm an American. I don't know how to pronounce foreign words. So, Bulwer it's or Volwer, something like that. You can make him the Van Helsing character and everything. I mean, so it would definitely be interesting. Like, I think isn't what's his name doing a remake of it? Made the Northman, Rob Egger or something.
Every once in a while, someone comes along and wants to do it. There was one with Willem Dafoe that I really enjoyed. What was that one? The
Shadow
Mark of the Vampire, I think.
I believe it's called Shadow of
Vampire. Really,
right.
Yeah, it was a cool take on things. But yeah, I mean, if I had to pick another one, I would love the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I think that would be another one that we haven't seen anything like that. And that was, again, German expressionistic film with just beautiful sights and just stuff people never saw.
Yeah, nobody's ever even. I think they didn't they do a Cabinet of Dr. Caligari remake or something like 2005 or something? I think
I'm pretty sure they did, but I'm not sure.
It was, but I don't. It wasn't never really got much attention. It's really interesting if you especially rewatch the silent horror movies, not just obviously the main ones. Like that's just those are some of the creepiest horror movies. One of my favorites is one of my favorites, and I think it's very underrated. It's called The Sorrows of Satan, directed by D.W. Griffith. It's literally his adaptation of Faust. It's literally his adaptation of Faust. And
very cool.
It is one of the creepiest horror movies. I mean, and you're thinking, wow, this was made in 1926.
Yeah.
It's like, and even some of Lon Chaney's other roles that are not well known, but like the one where he's like playing a guy who has no legs at all, and he actually did that. Like, I mean,
he suffered for his art, though. He was legendary for that.
Oh yeah, no, I know we had a biopic of Lon Chaney.
Oh, I had no idea.
Back in the 50s, where Jimmy Cagney played him.
Yes, Man of 1,000 Faces.
Yes, and I would love to see, honestly, a remake of that. I don't know who you get to play Lon Chaney now, but
I don't know either.
And especially an actor nowadays who would be willing to do that for his art.
Maybe Christian Bale, because Christian Bale is pretty committed to stuff like that for his roles, especially when he did that one movie where he lost an unhealthy amount of weight.
The Mechanic, yes.
Movie? Yeah, that. So I think Christian Bale is the only one who could nowadays.
That would be interesting, getting him as Lon Chaney.
He may not look like Lon Chaney, but hey, I mean, I think Christian Bale could pull it off.
I know we're nerding out here, but I would love to see one of these unsung special effects artists play him. I don't think anyone could play him as accurately as another special effects artist or someone that had a love for the art, at least. To know him intimately and be able to portray him, I think, would bring a lot to the character. I mean, I tried a lot of his techniques, too. He had one, and I talked to prospective special effects artists and especially the younger ones, that when they talk about suffering for their art, whenever Lon Chaney had to have like a dead eye, they didn't have contact lenses back then. And what he used was that membrane, the thin membrane of an egg. And he would put that into his eye like it was, a contact lens, but it was a membrane of an egg. This is the type of stuff that he came up with,
Yeah.
I had no idea that he did that.
Well, you look at the stuff he did, like in that movie where he's, I can't remember the name of the movie where he's playing a guy with no legs, and he's walking on crutches throughout the whole movie, and like he literally tied his legs together, and put like these metal braces on his knees, and then you're thinking, oh, he doesn't have an upper body strength, but then he's sitting there hoisting himself up with ropes. I mean, he was.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably helped, honestly, too. I always sit there and talk how Lon Chaney's such a very interesting actor because he suffered for his art, and then his final movie was a talkie, and that might not even be his real voice because he was suffering from throat cancer at the time.
Yes.
So
yes.
that might not even be his real voice. And so, I mean, he is, it probably also did help. I think he was a circus performer too, which did help a lot too.
I believe so. And I also heard that both of his parents were deaf, which and then which probably led to him, being where he eventually went. So
yeah, well,
yes,
because he literally had to act in front of his parents. So and then not wanting Lon Chaney Jr. then to even really get into acting because of the rejection and everything. I think Lon Chaney Jr. was a plumber or something for the longest time.
Old Creighton Chaney, yes.
Yeah.
I tell you, I'm glad that he got into producers because he was the only one that played all of them. Honestly, he was the Frankenstein monster. He was Dracula in Alucard. He was the Wolfman, of course, and then the Mummy. He's played all of them, so he's one of the only.
Right. I mean, I would love to see that though, like a new biopic of Lon Chaney, just because, like, they talk about suffering for the art, but no actor really has done that since Lon Chaney, really. I mean, maybe the closest are once an actor, like, not that I'm comparing them, but it's more just the fact that he does is like maybe like Jackie Chan, who literally did his own stunts for our entertainment, and Tom Cruise, but not that I'm comparing them. It's more like, I mean, Jackie Chan, has a hole in his head because I think he literally hit a tree when he was doing one of his stunts.
Yep.
And then, I mean, and again, not that I'm comparing them at all, because this is really going far down the list of suffering for our entertainment, but maybe the Jackass guys. But I mean, Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
I mean, Johnny Knoxville broke his every guy's favorite body part for our entertainment. So
True. Yeah, there was a little bit more dignity with Lon Chaney, but yeah, I mean,
yes, but not that I'm comparing to, like, suffering for your art. Like, well, Eric, I guess you kind of did that with the second movie, right?
Yes, I did. So while I was in the middle of filming my second movie, I was having back problems, and during the final shot of the movie, so it was me playing Amber Turd, and then I'm just lying there. It's just me lying there, like, on the cement when I was just in the hospital, like, for back pain. Me lying down on the cement was excruciatingly painful.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that I did it sober, like when a lot of actors would do it if they had alcohol in their system, but not me. So I did that final shot in my second movie, me playing Amber Turd, lying down on the cement. So yeah.
Yeah. So but nowadays I just wonder, Eric, I'm not criticizing SAG. Now I just wonder even if SAG would get involved if you did something like that. Like, no, you can't do this. Like, the insurance would go through the roof. Because going back to even Jackie Chan, that's one of the reasons why Jackie Chan, he can't get insurance in the U.S. because he does it himself. And I think Tom Cruise even can't get insurance for himself too, because he does it himself. True.
Yeah. Yeah. Ironically, actors could not do what they did back then, actually, because of a couple of monsters. Did you guys ever hear the story of Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, along with a bunch of other stars, starting that union? I mean, that was the very first union.
Yeah, they were the fathers of the Screen Actors Guild.
I believe Karloff was number 9, I believe.
Mhm.
I believe he
Yeah.
was number 9. Maybe somebody in the comments down below can let us know, but I'm pretty sure Karloff was number 9.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, without those guys, there probably wouldn't be because they actually went and lobbied hard for that union, Karloff, because he still had the scars, you know. I mean, and Bela Lugosi, of course, he's hurt himself. You know, both of those guys had bad backs. That's what the whole reason Bela Lugosi got addicted to the opium. You know, so these guys definitely. I don't think any modern actor would even come close. Even Harrison Ford, he's probably broken more bones than your normal superstar, and you know, he's probably better off than some of those guys from our past, you know, in the monster world.
Oh yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's just, you know, but you know, I always thought there has to be a way to do it where you can be obviously keep the actors safe, but like at least make them not suffer too much. But like, let's like, yeah, you know,
Unfortunately, the answer is not what people hear all the time, but CGI. CGI
yeah,
has been helpful with keeping actors safer. I just don't like that people are depending so strongly on it that practical effects are going bye bye.
yeah.
And
Well,
I still think I don't think that we've gotten to the point where we can replace actors yet. You can still really tell when it's CGI. I'm always a fan of the practical.
well, yes, practical effects. I mean, practical effects. You know, like will always be better because it's made by humans, not a computer. And
Yeah.
I don't. Yes, computers are always advancing and everything else, but like I don't think we're there yet in that utopia where computers can magically do these magic things that we've seen in science fiction.
Yeah.
But and honestly, I hope
And
he never
thank
gets.
God. You know,
I
I'm
honestly,
so glad we're not there, and I hope we never get there
yeah, me
because
too.
it would really thumb its nose at true creatives. You know, people that have come up with this stuff. If AI can write the movie, cast the movie, have the actors portray, create the monsters, where is the human element? You know, and I'm a big opponent of AI in general because it's a thief. It's technological thief. It's stealing from all the different actors or whatever they do, whether it's acting or special effects or artwork, paintings, you know, all of that stuff. It takes from it and then creates something new from all of those, and it's not right, you know? It's laziness.
Right. Well, and look at like some of the. I'm not going to mention any of the movies, but look at some of the movies that was proven that was made by a bot, and then versus ones that were written by humans. You can tell by the dialogue because a computer is only going to know okay, basic villainy and basic hero.
Yeah.
It's all going to know the basics, and so when you get basic stories, you kind of get boring. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've always been humans as failed people. We've always had that rogue element. You know, computers don't deal with rogue elements. They don't deal with that chance. You know.
Well, and even one thing, at least I appreciate Eric's told me about his film professor. You know, he actually teaches filmmaking and storytelling, not, you know, like some rules in storytelling are meant to be broken. You know, like Rocky, for instance, does not work as a basic screenplay if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Because the big action happens like not even halfway through the movie. So you sometimes in order to create the best story, you have to break the rules because some rules are meant to be broken. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And like even going back to special effects, you know, nobody said that with Stan Winston when he did Aliens. Nope. People thought the Alien Queen would not have worked at all.
But it did.
Yeah.
And that is probably one of the greatest special effects ever made.
Still to this day, even though that came out in like the mid 80s.
86.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and it's the bar. It sets a bar. I mean, I don't think we have done anything as grand, except maybe the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. You know, that was a monumental feat at the hands of Stan Winston, even down to the servos and the way foam when it got wet. That was practical effects at its best. Between those two movies, how can we argue that?
right. And,
Definitely, yeah.
it's like a YouTuber that me and Eric know, Rambo Rap for Life, says you cannot get more real than real. Something that,
Mhm.
and you need to have that. I mean, look at even Superman 78, the big tagline, "You will believe a man can fly," and
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it does. I'm not criticizing, but it looks a little wonky, but you still believe it. And that's the testament.
Richard Donner, what was it? The verisimilitude. Talked about that. It's like that's the whole thing: being honest to what you're doing.
Well,
bringing it to be.
It's one thing I've been telling to tell Eric. And that's actually like because I want to start a studio here. That's even. I kind of took a note from George Lucas and made my own special effects company. Nothing has happened with it, but that's when I named it Verisimilitude. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
So.
that's about as honest as you can get, man. And I'm afraid that the great filmmakers will never have another Coppola. We'll never have another George Lucas if we rely only on these film schools. Because now, for whatever reason, the film schools are training new directors to look at the social media end of things. Mm-hmm. That if you're not shooting a film that looks like it's social media, it's not going to be accepted by the people out there. You have to move at a certain pace because we've gotten just so bored with stuff.
Well, that's what I appreciate about Eric's professor. He didn't really teach a lot of that, right?
I know, like basically, he just taught like the Hollywood formula about having a character arc, the second act dip, and turning points, and all that. Like those were the things that he taught us. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
I
also
love those professors that teach the true mechanics of filmmaking. It's becoming a lost art. Everyone thinks they can pick up a cell phone and film a movie, but it takes an artist to be able to know the rule of thirds, the different lenses that create different effects, lighting, 3-point lighting. A lot of these people that are making movies today don't even have a concept of fill lights. It's getting scary that. So I would say, yeah, it's becoming more dependent for independent filmmakers to make these movies and show some of the big trained ones how to make them.
Well, I even have met people who want to be filmmakers and they don't even know what Technicolor is. I'm like, you're talking about one of the most beautiful forms of filmmaking ever, and you don't even know what that is. Like, even then, they don't even know what a CinemaScope lens is.
Yeah,
like, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I told Eric that you should actually get a CinemaScope lens for your movies because it will definitely enhance your movies.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was really the first widescreen, but no widescreen has ever looked that good.
Yeah.
And on modern TVs, CinemaScope looks amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean that's the thing though. Those pioneers, it's almost that we've gotten so lazy. Because this stuff is so around us and it's so accessible, but people can't associate with what you're talking about, or the people from ILM, which I'm sure you have a great love for. These guys were commercial guys that were making zippy commercials for Alka-Seltzer, and the next thing you know, they're creating these multi-pass cameras and computer-aided stuff for Star Wars. That's the ingenuity I'm afraid we're not going to have ever again.
Well, even Disney, it's not like a bashing Hollywood thing or anything, but like just kindly criticizing a little bit. People have said that animatronics and everything are going out of the way. That's one of the reasons why Tony Baxter left Disney, is what he said, because he didn't like it, and they were taking away the human element. And I would hope to maybe at some point bring that back because you need those humans that you need that that verisimilitude that connects everything, making the audience believe.
Yes. I absolutely agree with that because the whole thing about making film is to bring people into that world. It has to be that thing where you are being transported into whatever world you're viewing. And all of that stuff, even at theme parks, like you were saying with the animatronics, used to be that you would go in there. Like, I don't know if you remember the Great Movie Ride at
that was one of my favorites.
Studios.
That was
you
one of my
go
favorites.
through that. I hate that they closed that because that was a feat on so many levels. Particularly the Alien, that was amazing. Seeing Humphrey Bogart on the runway for Casablanca, and all of these characters are moving. I guarantee you that if they were to do a ride like that today, everything would be rear projection or projected or 3D. It's even like out at Universal Studios, you go on the new Kong ride, and that's all around you projected. You're not in that environment. You're in a big TV.
Look at people complain about it so much, but Universal Studios still has it. The Fast and the Furious Supercharged. They said that's one of the worst rides ever.
Yes, total. Just you taken out of the immersion.
But then people who criticize it, I'm like, I like it because it's an ironic level. Well, that's not how you should like the ride. No. You shouldn't look at it as Plan 9 from outer space. You like it for an ironic level. You like it because it's a good thing.
Yeah, and the studios like it, the theme parks like it because it's less money, it's cheaper. You don't have to hire people and pay insurance to them or worry about them getting hurt.
Well, look at I wish studios now, honestly. I mean, look at the movie Cleopatra from 1963. That movie, it broke even, it did not flop, which is a misconception. But Fox gambled their entire budget for that movie. And then they had to reshoot it, 4 times? Yeah. But they gambled their entire budget, which they kind of recouped a little bit because of The Longest Day. But if that movie failed, which it broke even, so Fox still managed to stay afloat for a few years. But you'll never see a studio like that do that again.
No,
definitely not.
No.
I mean,
it's been a gamble where it's very seldom paid off because you remember even Carl Laemmle, he had huge successes with the first couple of monster films, and then he said we're going to do this other big one. They put all their eggs in that basket, and that one tanked. Monsters did pretty good. That one not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, you never know what's going to really connect with the audience, but making a movie is a gamble. I mean, look at you, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've made movies yourself, and it's been a gamble for you. And
I did, and when I made my first movie, people were honest, saying that it wasn't the best, and then rather than me being defensive about it, I then said, okay, what do you feel like could have been better about it? And then all that I then used to make my second movie even better, and now everybody is in universal agreement that my second movie is a huge improvement over my original movie. And now with the movie I'm making now, I have no idea if it's going to be well received or not. I hope so, but you just really gotta wait and see.
Yeah. It's so, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting, Eric, to see if that turns out to be a success. So
I sure hope so, because knowing that I've been working on my new movie for pretty much all of 2023, and I'm just now finishing the movie up. So, I mean, making my new movie definitely has opened up doors for me, and I really feel like that that more people should be willing to take risks, because a lot of people, including myself, a lot of us are told not to pursue a career in movies because we're told that it's so far out of reach that it's ridiculous to expect it. And we're told instead to just go out there and get a safe job. Well, I had a safe job working at Albertsons, a grocery store, for 8 years. Then it eventually got to the point where it was no longer working out. It was hard for me to financially support myself. And it's one of the reasons why that I really, really love Jim Carrey is that Jim Carrey told the story about how his father, Percy Carey, could have been a really good comedian, but his father didn't believe that was possible for him. So instead of his job, instead that his dad got a safe job as an accountant. And then when Jim Carrey was only 12 years old, his father was let go of that safe job. And then him and his whole family had to live inside of a van. And then Jim Carrey's father said to Jim, you can fail at what you don't want, working at that safe job you don't care about. So you might as well should take a chance at doing what you love. And then I felt like that, that was speaking to my current situation working at Albertsons. So no longer was working out. So then I was like, you know what? Life is too short. I'm going to go out there and take that chance. I'm going to go out there and actually do what I love. And now I have a shot with SAG, and I'm going to be getting my own agent soon. So, life is too short. If you want to go live your dreams, do it now.
Well, my biggest problem, it kind of goes back to me. Like, my biggest problem was I was always applying. I would apply for jobs and not get them sometimes for whatever reason, and when I would got them, it's like, sometimes it'd be like get let go. I'm like, what the heck did I do? And then that payment disputes and all that other stuff. So I'm like, well, I guess, I realized my heroes in the industry were the Walt Disneys, the George Lucas, the people who pushed the technology further to make movies better. Because, Walt Disney was the father, if you think about it, of surround sound with Fantasia. What he did with the Fantasound, and George Lucas. We don't have to go into what George Lucas did for making movies better. I'm like, man, we need a guy like that in Hollywood now, somebody that can push technology further to make the movies better. And because I think that's one of the key things that's missing right now. We don't have that modern day Walt Disney, the man, the modern day George Lucas. And like, we live in the internet age.
Do you think there will ever be like that in this age of political correctness and everything like that? Will there be cutting edge directors like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, any of them?
I think, maybe it's just optimism on my part, but I think with the right, the market has proven that if, people said that comic books were dead, and then look how many independent comic book creators now are super successful. Look at I know he's controversial, but he shouldn't be, Eric. Look at Eric July, who made comic books that people, in their first run, they sold 1 million copies. So if people can, the public can get behind you, the market's still proven that it can. People believe in you. I think with Eric, he, based on his only few movies, he's shown a lot of talent. You made a successful series. You made series based on your most popular YouTube series that's basically Monty Python meets South Park.
Yeah, and knowing that in my last movie, Amber Turd actually was a character, and that is the one scene everybody talks about absolute most. You can probably imagine why.
And I just even said to him, okay, don't even call her Amber Turd. Because first of all, Amber Heard even sues us. Okay, fine, whatever. Because it's like, okay, this is more parody. But I said, embrace it. Call her Amber Turd. Like, no, that's her character name. So, I think with the right person, you just more need somebody who believes him. Like, George Lucas would not have been who George Lucas is without Alan Ladd Jr. If Alan Ladd Jr. did not believe in, he didn't really get Star Wars, but he loved George Lucas. If you have a guy like that, then I think anything's possible. And I'll say this: I think where George failed, and I love George Lucas, and I'm not one of those George Lucas haters, but I think honestly, and I understand why he didn't want to do it, but I think Lucasfilm should have gone public.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Definitely.
George should have taken the risk and just went public. I know you're at the risk of the stockholders, but look at Disney. He went public, and he never listened to the stockholders.
Yeah.
And because they told him, they even told him, don't make this theme park. This isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And then, ironically enough, Disney is now like the most profitable theme park out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with what? 5 theme parks all around the world?
Yeah, they have one in California, Florida, Japan, Paris.
2 in China.
China.
2. So what? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if with the right visionary guy and somebody sitting there willing to, tell the banks to sit there and say, hey, keep quiet. Yeah, I know there's not money to bank, but hey, maybe there'll be something.
Yeah.
And somebody just
Very
goes
few
for
people
it.
want to invest though in filmmakers, and it's a shame because we're losing a huge part of our humanity. And I think that we always express ourselves best in art, whether it's music or anything like that. But it's the least valued thing in school.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is I'm noticing that video games have gotten to be, the composers for video games have gotten to be better film composers than actual film composers now. Like Jeremy Soule, who made Skyrim. Like, that is one of the best movie scores ever. And, like, there's the game The Witcher. That guy sounds like Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
I mean, so you just need those. And I'm not even, this is, again, folks, it's not criticizing Hollywood. This is more just giving friendly advice because we're concerned, And one of the things that I also think is, there's just, it's more. I go back. There's the great documentary, Star Wars: Empire of Dreams. That was made, where if you look at it from the point of view that they're saying, the old Hollywood moguls were making the same mistakes that their previous generations were making. So the Xanax, the Lemleys even were selling their studio to marketing people. Marketing people don't know how to make movies. And if you don't believe me that there was marketing people wanting to make movies, there was actually a bidding war for all the studios for a emoji movie that came out a few years ago. So they're selling their movies to marketing people, and now they're making movies that are where they just say, "Oh, we're not going to release this. We're just going to make it a tax write-off."
Yeah.
Like that. I'm sorry, that Wile E. Coyote movie looked very interesting. Wile E. Coyote actually sues Acme, and then I think John Cena played his lawyer.
Oh, gosh.
Which I don't know how I feel about that movie, but I like the concept. Wile E. Coyote sues Acme finally, for pain and injury. Yeah. But because that's a unique concept, and then you make that.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
She's telling you to go to bed now.
She's got to go to bed. We usually got to get up early with the kids. The earliest one is 5:30. She's got to go to elementary school.
We can let you go here. I'll be staying up editing probably, but thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
We will.
Yeah, it was fun, guys.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
we'll gladly have you on again sometime.
Yeah, give a holler.
Oh yeah,
I always love talking about movies.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.
You as well.